Colombian conflict. Armed conflict. The armed conflict in Colombia emerged due to a combination of economic, political and social factors in the country 60 years ago. In the early period, 1974 to 1982, guerrilla groups like the FARC, the ELN and others focused on slogan of greater equality through communism, and they came to have support from some local people. However, the balance of power and influence shifted in the mid-1980s when Colombia granted greater political and fiscal autonomy to local governments, strengthening the position of the Colombian government in more remote regions of the country. In 1985, the FARC co-created the left-wing Patriotic Union, UP, political party. Eventually, the UP distanced itself from insurgent groups. However, right-wing paramilitaries apparently linked to the armed forces murdered a large number of party members during the 1980s and 90s, decimating the organization and aggravating the broader conflict. Initially, a group of Americans began to smuggle marijuana during the decades of the 60s and 70s. Later, the American mafia began to establish drug trafficking in Colombia in cooperation with local marijuana producers. Cocaine, and other drugs, manufactured in Colombia were historically mostly consumed in the US as well as Europe. Organized crime in Colombia grew increasingly powerful in the 1970s and 80s with the introduction of massive drug trafficking to the United States from Colombia. After the Colombian government dismantled many of the drug cartels that appeared in the country during the 1980s, left-wing guerrilla groups and right-wing paramilitary organizations resumed some of their drug trafficking activities and resorted to extortion and kidnapping for financing, activities which led to a loss of support from the local population. These funds helped finance paramilitaries and guerrillas, allowing these organizations to buy weapons which were then sometimes used to attack military and civilian targets. During the presidency of Álvaro Uribe, the government applied more military pressure on the FARC and other outlawed far-left groups. After the offensive, many security indicators improved. As part of a controversial peace process, the AUC, right-wing paramilitaries, as a formal organization had ceased to function. Colombia achieved a great decrease in cocaine production, leading White House drug czar Argil Kurlikowski to announce that Colombia is no longer the world's biggest producer of cocaine. The United States of America is still the world's largest consumer of cocaine and other illegal drugs. In February 2008, millions of Colombians demonstrated against the FARC and other outlawed groups. 26,648 FARC and ELN combatants have decided to demobilize since 2002. During these years, the military forces of the Republic of Colombia managed to be strengthened. The peace process in Colombia, 2012, refers to the dialogue in Havana, Cuba between the Colombian government and guerrilla of FARC-EP with the aim to find a political solution to the armed conflict. After almost 4 years of peace negotiations, the Colombian state and the FARC announced consensus on a 6-point plan towards peace and reconciliation. The government also began a process of assistance and reparation for victims of conflict. Recently, UP supporters reconstituted the political party, within the process of reconciliation. Colombia's Congress approved the revised peace accord. In February 2015, the Historical Commission on the Conflict and its Victims, Comisión Histórica del Conflicto Armado y sus Víctimas, CHCV, published its report entitled Contribution to an Understanding of the Armed Conflict in Colombia. The document, that deals with the multiple reasons for the conflict, the principal factors and circumstances that made it possible and the most notable impacts on the population, helped to understand Colombia's armed conflict in terms of international law.